This is the CreaseCast.
I need to start off this episode of the CreaseCast with a bit of an apology to everybody because I made a severe lapse in judgment. This is my big YouTuber apology video. It's not an easy video for me to
Should
make.
I leave for this?
No, I need to apologize to you as well.
Okay.
I need to apologize to everybody. Yesterday, after the Canucks beat the Bruins 2-1 in a shootout, and everyone was very happy. It was a very exciting day. They're 2-0. They're fresh off of firing Jim Benning and Travis Green. They've got a 2-0 record under Bruce Boudreau. World is at peace. For just a split second, I made a TikTok, essentially, like a very like not a really like not a legitimate TikTok, like one where I'm doing anything in it. It's literally just I took a clip off of Canucks Twitter, off of like the Canucks Twitter page from that day, and then put a caption. That was it. It was nothing fancy, nothing cringe. It was
your first sin was just making a TikTok, though. That was your first sin.
It's the new age. I have to try. And it was, and and I also kind of posted like a different version of it to the Twitter account, not in a TikTok form, just in regular tweet form, where the caption was that Cody and I finding out that we don't have to do depressing CreaseCast episodes anymore. And it was, of course, a video of Connor Garland, like mobbing Thatcher Demko after winning. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was fun. I thought everyone was having just such because you know what? Hey, the Canucks are doing things that actually give us hope, kind of thing. And of course, that was a very rookie mistake of me to assume that was that by tweeting that or by posting that, I wasn't going to immediately bring any sort of good news to a screeching halt, because here we are today talking about the fact that the Canucks have hired a new president of hockey operations, Jim Rutherford, former general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes and the Pittsburgh Penguins. He won 3 Stanley Cups, one with the Hurricanes in 2006 and 2 with the Penguins in 2016
and 17.
Yes, yeah. 2016 and 17.
Mm-hmm.
That was announced earlier today. And this is coming off of, again, last night we heard from interim GM Stan Smeel talking about the future of the team and how the patience is important and not jumping the gun on anything is great. And then the Canucks, and there was the whole interview with Francesco Aquilini saying the exact same thing. It only took him 3 days to hire Francesco, a new president of hockey ops. And
real due diligence there.
Yeah, and Jacob, I'm just like I'm tired, partially because I was up way too late last night working on articles, but I'm also just tired because this just seems like the Canucks doing another thing where, to me anyway, it seems like the Canucks not necessarily being forward thinking. They went back to the well of old hockey men and hired a guy who has already left 2 jobs. And I get that he has success in those markets, that he left both those markets with cups, but there's a reason he's not there anymore in either of those cases. And I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't see how hiring a guy I get with experience, but a guy who is probably best days of hockey management have passed him by at this point, how this helps your team in any way, shape, or form.
I see your point here. And I was mentioning to Lachlan before we even started that I'm usually pretty cynical about these. And when I saw that he had been hired this quickly, I was like, oh, here we go again. I'm going to be the optimist here. And Lachlan's going to be the cynic. And I think it's just a good counter for him. So, yes.
Making me work harder. Damn it.
Yes. Rutherford is Old Boys Club. He's been Carolina. He's been in Pittsburgh. He's no longer there. And, he's quite old. I think he's like 72, something like that.
He's up there. He's getting up there. I'm going to look.
But so there's a couple details that kind of came out later once the team officially announced that he had been hired. Number one, 3-year deal for the presidency. And I don't think he will be moved in any way until that term is up, unless, they decide to bring a successor in, but that depends on a lot of other factors. And number 2, it is the president job. It's not the GM job. If it was the GM job, everyone would have lost their collective minds. I think a lot of people, including myself, were quite hesitant when he was first mentioned, even in a president of hockey ops position. But, throughout the day, a lot of people have been thinking about it and saying, hey, he brings a collective stability. It's better than just hiring someone. You said that they will go back to the well. The last time they hired someone with experience was Burke. It wasn't like recently, technically, either. They've always gone to the new guys. They hired Benning, they hired Willie, they hired Green. So I do appreciate them at least going with someone that has the experience to do something like this. And also for the fact is, they probably are not looking at Rutherford as like a long-term president here, or at least a long-term vision. Like I mentioned, he's getting older in his years. A lot of people are thinking he's there to essentially be a mentor to the Sedins and other people in the organization who essentially could oversee the team as a GM. But Rutherford will take the first pick as the actual GM, and we don't know who that is. There's been quite a few names thrown out there already. Boudreau, forget, there was another one I think mentioned. There
was another one. There was
McFarland, but I don't know if that was connected to Rutherford. That was just people want McFarland from Colorado.
There was another guy mentioned. I believe it was I'm trying to remember who it was. Another guy that worked under Rutherford in Pittsburgh. I believe it was. If I'm looking it up as we speak. I'm trying to remember exactly what his name was.
I don't remember, but if you say it, I'll probably remember right away.
Yeah, it's a case of if it was a case where he was coming in as the general manager, I will say yes, I would be a lot more concerned. If it was a case of him being the GM. And I understand the idea of going for like a guy with experience and whatever in a certain role, but at the same time, I don't necessarily see that at like hiring guys who don't have, say, immediate experience in that type of a role as being a minus against them kind of thing. If anything, I think it makes them a little bit more tantalizing in the sense of it's like, well, it's somebody who is going to put their full effort in, is going to make an effort to put their own stamp on something, on a franchise and on a team, and hopefully in a way that makes the team better. Whereas I think in a case like Rutherford's, where like just looking at his how did he leave Pittsburgh? Well, he left Pittsburgh because for personal reasons. That was the reason cited. He never gave an official reasoning. A lot of people believe that's due to, say, just differences in
vision and leadership. Essentially,
vision,
he might have outgrown his tenure there. So
yeah, and I guess there was always talk of like he kind of didn't. He had retired originally after leaving the Hurricanes, and then came out of retirement to join the Penguins. That was the thing. That was how he got the Penguins job. So what that tells me, honestly, is that this is a guy who's not really interested in putting that much effort in. He's not really, it sounds to me like a guy who's like, oh, whatever, I'll just do something. I'll do something. I don't know. Like, it's one of those like cases where I'm like, I don't trust you to actually try and put your full gusto in here. I trust you to kind of maybe just to try and to basically like coast a little bit here, which is not what the Canucks need. And I don't know. I just look at a lot of this as, again, like the president of hockey ops, their job is to be very front facing and to be talking about the vision and the organization of the team. Jim Rutherford isn't really a guy who talks a crazy amount. I don't think he does interviews, definitely more than recent GMs and whatnot, but he's also not like the salesman guy. I don't really see him as a big, like, as the guy making the sales pitch on like, this is why we love Vancouver. This is why you got to be here kind of thing. Right.
Well, I see Smeel being that guy now. He's not the interim GM anymore. He lost that role once Rutherford brought in, but like, he's still part of the collective group of people that are essentially in that inner circle of, president and GM, of like advisors. Like Smeel, given like how well the fan base in the city has responded to him, like in his 3 days, best GM record ever, 2-0, 100% win rate. But yeah, like I see him being more of the guy that would say, we want you here, And here's why. Like, I've been here for like 40 plus years. This city will love you for when you give it your all, that type of thing. And Rutherford, like I said, it's a 3-year deal. He's going to be here to bring stability and experience to it and mentorship. Like, I understand where you're coming from. He is, getting up there, and, people may think he's not going to put his full effort in. I think he will try. I think it's better than, Benning going out and being like, because you were joking like, oh, he's just going to coast. I'm like, I mean, Aqua and Benning have been coasting for the last 6 or 7 years with no vision whatsoever. Honestly, they, it's like, oh, we're a playoff team in 2 to 3 years, and it's not even really building about a championship caliber. It's just a playoff team because of that revenue, that sweet revenue. Yeah. I honestly, like, the more I think about it, the more I warm up to this. We'll see who the GM hire is. And I think that, like, I joke about it being so soon since they fired Benning that they literally bring in the president, but I think it's just to ease the waters internally in the organization. And that GM hire will probably come in next season. Like, they might be looking at people that are currently in jobs right now that they can't talk to. People are talking to McPhee, but like, now that we have Rutherford, I don't think McPhee's coming.
That's the big thing. Like, a lot of other candidates that would have been nice are probably now crossed off the list here, and that's which is the other thing that I'm not a huge fan of with this. Obviously, there was the Gillis and Gilman rumors floating around, which would have been nice. I wasn't necessarily one of the people that's like, oh, absolutely, these are the only people you should be bringing back. But I was also like, they would make perfect sense. This is exactly this is more or less the same situation that Mike Gillis came into when he took over from Dave Nonis. So why not? Like, clearly that is what he is most skilled at. So let's give him a go. Let's give him a shot. There are also just a bunch of other candidates who have never been a president of hockey ops or have never been a general manager that I would love to see come in and take on the role. And I just look at, say, the fact of already, like, knowing what I know about the history of the old boys club in hockey, is just that, we're just going to see another retread. We're going to see the same people that have already tried this and have failed at it before a bunch of times over. Like, key example is the fact that a lot of people are already pretty confident that the man, Jim Rutherford is going to pick to be the GM of the Canucks is Jason Boudreau. And Jason Boudreau is, of course, the guy who absolutely torpedoed the Buffalo Sabres into oblivion. He took a team that was relatively okay, saddled them with I shouldn't say relatively okay. They were rebuilding. They had the hope of, if they were rebuilt properly, they could turn into something nice. They had Jack Eichel there waiting for them. They had a good look. They had an okay future. He turned that into $9 million worth of Jeff Skinner, $6 million of Kyle Okposo, like, just a who's who of guys who came to Buffalo, absolutely looked terrible, and then were sold for pennies on the dollar or just went to completely other places. Like, he was the guy who traded Ryan O'Reilly for a bag of nothing.
I was looking at that trade. Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like, that's bad. Like, if that's the prime candidate for the Canucks job, we're in a lot of trouble, because I do not trust Jason Boudreau to do anything with this group that he didn't already do with Buffalo, which is just destroy it entirely. And again, that's my biggest concern, is with picking a guy who has already done this a bunch of times before, is that he's just going to pick one of his buddies to do the same thing that they've already done a bunch of times before. And I feel the Canucks need to look past that very clearly. Like, the Canucks need to look for guys who bring a different sense of, bring a different type of ideas to the different type of ideas to the organization, specifically when it comes to things like how they look at advanced stats, how they look at how they approach the salary cap situation. Like, there are things that the Canucks clearly are behind on compared to other teams that they really need forward thinkers to be in front of. And I'm sorry, not to be ageist here, but I don't trust a 72-year-old to do that. I don't trust him to be like, oh, we're going to pick a bunch of bright up and comers. No, I think he's going to pick a bunch of 40, 50-year-old buddies who he likes to go to the bar with. Like I do not trust this. It's one of those things where I am open to being proven wrong with Jim Rutherford. Like again, I am fine with this over, say, the Jim Benning alternative by a country mile, because it's the unknown versus the known, I guess, sort of thing. But it's one of those, I'll believe it when I see it. I really need to see some visible proof that he's going to be a progressive president of hockey ops and not just do the same thing that sent things off the rails in Carolina and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean those last couple moves and maneuvers in Pittsburgh kind of painted a light, and I don't think that played into his resignation there.
No.
But we were joking, everyone's bringing up we brought in the guy who traded for Goodbranson. We replaced the guy who traded for Goodbranson with the guy that traded for Goodbranson. So
right, it's the one trade Jim Benning won pretty much outright. They traded for they hired the guy who lost that trade.
It was a desperation move. They really wanted to go after the cup that year, and I'm pretty sure Gutty got injured in like the second game of the playoffs. I watched.
They needed someone to pair with Jim Rutherford's other prized acquisition, Jack Johnson, and his $5 million contract.
Hey, in NHL 20, that's probably not too bad.
It's
actually no. Let's make that NHL 12.
NHL 12, yeah. What a great NHL 12, NHL 13 defensive.
Yeah, I should go like Sim and be like, let's find out how good overall Jack Johnson and Eric Branson are. They probably are not that bad.
Yeah,
and at that point they were still okay. So
and there's again, you look at the other thing with his 2 cup victories as well. Like there has always been the talk about how, like, especially in this market of late, people have really been debating the whole, because of the Mike Gillis rumors. People have been going like the prime attack on Gillis's tenure is that he inherited the team from a bunch of JMs before him.
Yeah,
and actually, here's the thing, right? Like that in itself is actually very commonplace. Is that it's insanely commonplace. Like Jim Rutherford's actually a good example of that, where he inherited a team that was built of pieces that came from Ray Shero, who inherited a team of core guys from Craig Patrick, who drafted Crosby, Malkin, and Fleury. It was one of those things where it was a domino effect. Very rarely in hockey history does the guy who puts the core pieces there in the first place, is he also the guy that sees out the entire trip to that Stanley Cup. That's a very rare thing in hockey, and I don't think it's happened very often. I think maybe Dean Lombardi with the Kings is the only recent example of that happening. It's always been a case of like the second or third GM is the one that actually gets to reap the rewards, sort of thing, right? And so that's a very common thing. And Rutherford again is in that same kind of boat. What comes up is how do you capitalize on that going forward? How do you keep the momentum going afterwards, and what does you in that way? And in Rutherford's case, it was a situation where the Penguins were a team built very much on their speed and playing a quick pace of hockey, and which made them incredibly successful, and that's why they won those 2 cups. And immediately after that, Jim Rutherford was like, nope, we need to get tougher and stronger. And they started trading away from their strong suit to fit this much grittier style of hockey, even though they had just won 2 cups, and it completely undid things. And that's the worry here with what might happen here. And again, that's not to say he's been a completely abysmal general manager. There's a lot of good trades in here, and there's a lot of decisions that are actually pretty okay. I just look at things that, like, what they could have done had they stayed the course, had they looked a little bit more, had they not been looking at, oh my God, we nearly lost this time, so we're going to completely change the way we play hockey the second time. And then there's also, that's not even including the whole situation with their farm team, where there's currently a lawsuit going on because the wife of an assistant coach was sexually assaulted by the head coach of their farm team, and the Penguins allegedly covered it up, made every attempt to cover it up under Rutherford's watch. So I'm sorry, I don't trust that either. Like, there's a lot of things in there that make me think, yeah, I'm not going to see a lot of progressive, good decisions here, smart decisions from a human standpoint here. So, what does this mean for the Canucks going forward?
Yeah, it's complex and it's a confusing time at least. I think it like, withstanding or withholding some of the other stuff there, this is not a long-term thing. This is not going to be the next 8 years. This is not going to be that. And I think that Aqua's patience has run out. At least like he's preaching patience, but like, hiring Rutherford. And then if they bring in one of Rutherford's buddies as a GM, he's expecting major change and like playoff hopes. And if that doesn't happen, I feel like those guys will be gone in 2.5, 3 years. And the Rutherford's deal's only for 3 years. And I think the GM's only going to get 3 years or 2 years anyways.
Yeah,
either.
it would be a
So,
matching case. But
they go in tandem and then they replace them with internally with Sedins, which I feel this is going to happen.
Again, I feel really weird about the whole, like, people are like, oh, the Sedins are definitely going to take over. I'm kind of like, are they? Like, is that really is that really a good call? Like, just like
I think it's decent.
I love the Sedins, but like at the same time, I'm also like, I'm already.
You're just biased. You're biased to Roberto, though. That's the problem.
I'm not biased for Roberto.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
thinking, not in the case of not when we're talking about the Sedins. I'm more about which one is going to be GM? Are they
co-GM
GMs?
It's co-GMs.
Are they going to be co-GMs?
Yes.
Is
First
one
co-GMs
which one is
in NHL
which one
history.
gets more? Which one gets a beggar paycheck? Is it?
No, they get equal paychecks, and the best part is when they go to the draft, one of them will come up to like a table, like a team table, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey," and then the GMs will be like the GM of the table will be like, "Is that Eric or Daniel?"
What if they like? Again, we don't even know if they necessarily. Again, we just assume because they're twins that they have the exact same vision. What if one of them wants to play a very different type of hockey than the other one?
That's why it's a collaborative
Well, I guess
effort.
there's
a compromise there. Yeah, exactly. There's a check and balance there. It's not about this one single guy thinking, "Oh, we got to get some meat and potatoes in here," as to quote some guy from 2014.
To be very clear, my vision was always that the Sedins were going to be the ones that hired Luongo later on. So that actually, no, it's still fine. And
they
if anything,
could be
Luongo
presidents.
is still Luongo is still potentially a candidate just because they didn't hire the GM yet. Rutherford could magically.
It's a long shot. Very long shot.
Transfer's already said he doesn't think Luongo's coming, and I'm like, which of course my answer was Transfer is smart. He is tempering everybody's expectations so that it's a big surprise when he does in fact take it. So respect to Drancer for, keeping everybody in check, because eventually GM Luongo is going to come here and he's going to win us a championship. But it's really about the fact that like, we can talk about like the 3-year plan and whatever and what have you and everything, but I'm just looking at the fact of like in 3 years from now, you're looking at a situation where Elias Pettersson is a free agent again, or a restricted free agent again. So you've already used up that entire bridge contract. You're halfway through Quinn Hughes' contract. Like, that's a lot of years to be like, oh, we'll wait, we'll see where we're at then. Like,
I don't think it's about waiting though. Like, this is, like I said, it's a transition period. Rutherford's not going to stand pat with his GM. They will make moves, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, Aqua, I don't think is going to be like, yeah, Rutherford's great. We're going to re-sign him and his GM. I feel like they're going to make moves towards this vision they have of the team that Aqua's obviously bought into, because he's, brought Rutherford in, and he'll bring in Rutherford's guy as GM. And I think at those 3 years, then they're going to say, we're not going to renew the contracts and we're bringing in new people, or they shuffle them into advisor roles.
That would be nice.
I think that's probably what will happen.
That's basically the model
you learn from betting.
That was the model. Yeah. That was the model that Toronto took with Lou Lamoriello and Kyle Dubas. Like, that was the whole thing where Kyle Dubas came in, was the assistant GM. And literally they said, I believe Lou Lamoriello said in his first season as Leafs GM, essentially in 3 years, the job is Kyle's, as long as if he's ready.
This
if
wasn't
he's
like
not ready, then somebody else is taking it.
Yeah, this wasn't like a Tonight Show debacle where Kyle sucked in his first year and then Lou's like, I want the job back.
Hey, Conan was not bad. Conan wasn't bad.
No, I didn't say he was bad. All I was saying is that the ratings sucked. and like in terms of performance or whatever, and then they're like,
Jay
we're gonna give the
Leno.
show back to Lou. We're giving the show back to
Jay
Lou.
Leno, God, Jay Leno's the worst.
He
Yeah,
sucks, but that was just
yeah,
a joke.
and I mean, actually, that is a very apt description because Lou Lamoriello instantly was like, "I don't like being a president," and immediately left to just go be GM of the Islanders. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And
and everyone was mad at the Leafs. It was like they literally told you 3 years in 3 years that this was going to be a thing. I don't know
Yeah.
why you're surprised.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
he really likes to be a part of the like, and I get
he
it.
wants
He wants to be
he wants
in. He wants
full
to in.
control.
Yeah.
In a way, Lou Lamoriello would be both the perfect Canucks GM for the Canucks right now, and also just the worst GM for the Canucks right now. Like he's one of those things where it's like part of him would be great because he would never, because again,
He wouldn't take
owner,
crap from Aqua.
yeah, no
No.
owner is going to tell Lou Lamoriello what to do. But also on the other hand, Lou Lamoriello was also a guy with a lot of old fashioned ideas. I don't need the Canucks.
Oh, get
having
that
a
garbage
no
dress code
mustache
out of
rule.
here. Oh, get
I don't-
that garbage playoff beard crap out of there too. His
Oh,
playoff policies and crap. Yeah.
the mustache rule, like it's one of those things where I've been like I've gotten a different idea on thinking on the mustache thing, where it's like, oh, it actually is one of those things where it's like it makes it, the part that makes sense is the part where essentially it's talked about that, oh, Lou Lamoriello, when by making you shave every morning, Lou Lamoriello was making you think about the hockey team literally every single morning from the second you wake up, kind of thing, which is actually kind of an interesting idea. But it is also one of those things where it's like, let the players have some damn personality. Like, come on, like there are other things you can do. You can make them just, I don't know, make them like custom Leafs oatmeal or something and have them eat that instead, or Islanders oatmeal and something like Lou Lamoriello's. Like, there you go. Lamoriello's.
There's been like a Lou O's meme on Twitter. I'm guarantee I've seen that.
Something
probably.
like that.
It's always
Anyway,
good serial memes
there are other things that don't involve stifling players' personalities that you could have them do to think about the team of their first minute they wake up, kind of thing.
Yeah. More likely scenario is that Johnson comes in as GM after these 3 years, though, because apparently the Canucks are very high up on him, and there are a lot of people in the league apparently that are saying Johnson will be a GM one day, or at least a pretty high up.
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
he's in that inner circle right now in the Canucks organization too. So
that would be interesting.
Not saying that I approve of that. I wish we brought in more experience still within 3 years. I don't want to go back to the higher first year guys. I
don't hate, like, I don't think there's anything against first year guys that they've actually like put in the work, like, which Ryan Johnson in 3 years would have would be exactly that kind of a candidate. I am more of the mindset of just like, also, I don't like, just from what I've, again, maybe it's a case of under a new management group, things will look a little differently. But I mean, the Comets and the Abbotsford Canucks haven't really been that good since Ryan Johnson was GM. So I don't really know if
they had a Calder Cup run that they lost in 5 games. I don't remember who they lost.
He wasn't in charge though. He wasn't in charge of that. He only came onto the job
oddly for me.
That I believe was.
I don't even remember who that was.
I don't think it might have even been a case where
it was their first year they had Utica. Man, times passed weighly for me.
It was one
like,
of their,
that feels not that long ago, but that was probably like 8 or 9 years ago. It's a long time.
I believe Ryan Johnson at that point was like an assistant, like a development coach or something like that. It was something very it was
something
not
like that, yeah.
He was not there for he was not managing there for very long. I believe their GM, it might have even been Jim Benning, or like technically whoever Lawrence Gilman or something, whoever was still the assistant GM for the Canucks at the time, because I think that's how it ran for quite a while. But either way, yeah, that was a team basically built entirely out of Mike Gillis players as well.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, with the exception of, I think, Sven Berchi and
there were a couple guys.
Corey Conacher, I think, was the other one.
Oh, I forgot we had Conacher a while back. Yeah.
Yeah, good old Corey Conacher.
Big, like hyped up NHL player, AHL legend now, but yeah.
But yeah, I am willing to, as much as I've lost my mind a little bit talking about Jim Rutherford already, like I am more than willing to see what he does before making really a final call on this. It's one of the, again, if you were the general manager, I'd have a much harder stance on where I think this could be going. But because it's a presidency role, I do see scenarios where it works out for them. So I would like to see it, but right now I'm very skeptical.
So
and
this
need
is
to see
like,
I need to see some proof coming.
at least
through
it's
the
better
door.
than like the Doctor Strange where it's like, so what's the one scenario we win? And it's just, there's just one out of 250 million.
There are
You've
2
seen a
million.
couple.
I mean, that is where the Canucks are at, is it not? Like that is the Canucks for it.
If Benning was still in charge, it would be more like, I looked into 200
Zero.
million futures and there is
Sorry, guys.
zero hope.
No results found. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Error
guys. There was no way.
I just got an error message. Yeah, like that. Yeah, doctor. It really is just a case of in the Canucks history where it's like 2 million different option things. Where the Canucks history. How many do we win the cup? One. And then it's like something where it's like a kick or rock, and it's like, oh shoot, now it's 0. Like it's something just completely unrelated.
We ruined it. We ruined it.
Somebody
The butterfly
just tosses
effect.
a cup. Somebody just tosses a cup in that misses a garbage can and just hits like the lid
All of a
and just
sudden,
bounces
their
out.
reality just
Up,
nearly
zero.
there. Nope.
Cup over.
Can't win the cup. Speaking of new additions to this team, you mentioned Bruce Boudreau on the last podcast. He's played, or not played, he's coached 2 games for the Canucks, and the Canucks are 2-0-0.
Yeah, they're good now. Well, again, I was really hoping to come into today's episode just ready to throw a damn parade, but no.
Well, I mean,
never
yeah,
mind.
like super optimistic Lachlan would have been fun, but like, hey, Canucks are
I was
2-0-0.
gonna, yeah.
Fun Canucks hockey is a thing. I
That
went
is
to the
true.
game on Monday. I had a blast. You know, it was the first post-betting game in 8+ years. And I've been to quite a few games during the betting era. And I can say for a fact that I never really had, like, I cheer for the team either way. Like, I'm not, people would say if you don't like betting and you disagree, you don't support the team. I disagree.
No, it's called gatekeeping.
Yeah, exactly. I can support the team and decide I don't like this GM. I don't like the vision. And often the games I went to, it was pretty much like 50-50. We won some and we lost some. And I also went to that game in November against the Avalanche where the fire betting chants were first ringing out, at least just around the end and then the concourse.
I'm glad we're past that point.
We're past that though. So fun experience. Crowd was really into it. I'm trying to remember. They scored in the second, and then there was a 4-0 shutout that game. Crowd got really into it in the third though, because they're up 3-0. It was 4-0, I think, at that point. And then they play some tag team, and then it might have been the Lars Scheider section up in the upper bowl that got the Bruce There It Is going. And everyone got into it. I'm like, hey, and they even like the DJ. I give a shout out to Tom Fleming. He's on it. He started playing it like every break in the last 5 minutes because he's like, I'm picking up on the crowd. Got to play to the crowd here.
Good DJ.
Yeah, and also, and for those following Lachlan and Canucks Army, Bruce There It Is merch is live.
Oh, yeah,
that's if you want. I'm making plugs for you, and you're not even aware of it.
Well, I don't make any money off of that. You're supposed to plug.
Hey,
you're supposed to plug the CreaseCast store on this show.
I'm plugging your employer. They should be happy.
My employer, but I don't see us.
You're not your own employer in this.
Yeah, I don't see any money from that store. But no, the t-shirts look very cool.
And also, nice. And just for Lachlan's sake, go get Always Tired merch if it's still available. I don't know.
It is technically still available. We should have taken it down a while ago. I'm going to. I promise. It's on my to-do list.
Yeah.
The Bruce Boudreau's style of Canucks hockey has been such a breath of fresh air. I wrote about it for Canucks Army. I don't know if it's up yet. But basically, I wrote about just the fact that the Canucks are fun to watch now. Again, and it took such a long time for them to get there. They have been in this season has been terrible for a lot of reasons, but one of the things that's really exacerbated the situation to the point that it got to is the Canucks were playing some of the most boring, awful, egregious slog in the mud hockey. And it was
if I have to see another defenseman to defenseman pass again in their own zone, and they're like, the guys aren't even pressuring them, but they're still hemmed in their own zone. Like, it was almost like a Globetrotters thing where it's like they could literally just go up. They could go up to Hamonic and take it. Like, I'm not saying it's only Hamonic, but they could go up to the defenseman and almost just take the puck every time, or even just put a little pressure. The defenseman would immediately feel the pressure and be like, ugh, and then like pass the puck, and then it's a turnover.
Yeah,
like
it's almost
every
like their defense
time.
isn't good. Yeah.
And also, and not even those passes. It's the 90-foot passes where they're launching it. Oh, icing.
Tucker
There's
Pullman.
another icing. Like
Tucker Pullman and his very galaxy brain decisions that he makes on a nightly basis.
4 million,
I
not 4 million. 4 years. 4 years,
That's
folks.
literally the one good thing about one of the good things about the Canucks having new voices in their front office is that none of them are going to be held to the idea of, oh, Tucker Pullman can't go to the
Tucker
AHL.
Pullman is a top 4 defenseman. No, I think most people.
Tucker Pullman is a top 4 defenseman in the AHL.
The AHL,
maybe.
yes,
Maybe.
yes.
Send him down, please.
Yes.
Well, actually, they can't now because
can't.
Travis Hamonic is injured.
He's injured, and they're
OEL
calling
missed
up.
the last game.
And they're calling up Juleson. Yeah,
Yep, Noah Juleson is coming in.
but I have a story about Juleson as well.
Okay.
Funniest story. So I went to the game a couple years back. It was the Canadians, and me and my grandpa went. He had tickets that he got for the wheelchair section, which is a great section in Rogers. I think it's like 317, great view. But we were in gate 16, lobby area, if you've ever been there, Lachlan. And we start chatting with this older couple, and apparently it was Juleson's grandparents.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was like, hey, I'm going to see my grandson. And we're like, oh, who's your grandson? He's like, oh, he's played hockey here, and he's on the Canadians. And I was like, oh, let's look in the program. And it was Noah Juleson, of course, from Abbotsford. So I was really excited when they got him from Florida. Like, his career hasn't panned out exactly perfectly. He's had a lot of injuries, and I would think his development's kind of been stunted in Montreal, and then they shoved him to Florida, and now he's here. But I think, he's a great call up in terms of being close and local. It's a great connection for the Canucks in Abbotsford. And I hope he succeeds, at least in being that, great call up, at least, or a bottom 6 guy, kind of like Shen in some ways, because he's a good call up defenseman. He can sit in the box. He can play a couple games.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if he actually plays. I think it's more likely that
it's just a precautionary thing, but still,
he's just a body because, again, OEL's not on LTIR. Hamonic is.
They didn't say what OEL's issue was. To quote Boudreau, it's a body injury.
It's one of those things where it is worth keeping an eye on because Ekman Larson had taken a maintenance day, I believe, prior to the Penguins game.
Mm-hmm.
So he was not there he did play that game. So he played he took a maintenance day, played 2 more hockey games for 2 different coaches, and now and then he missed last night's game. So you wonder if it's a case of the player was already playing hurt, and now he's even more hurt.
That's very much a Canucks thing to happen every time. It's like they'll play, or we think they're injured. We'll be like, I think that guy got hurt in that play. The coach is like, oh, it's fine. They proceed to play another game. They're obviously they're obviously limping or playing injured, and we're just like, he's hurt, and they're like, no, he's fine. And then like the next day, they're like, oh yeah, he's week to week. And I'm like, if we had just stopped it, it would have been a day-to-day thing. Like, come on,
coach. He's literally saying, I can literally see him holding a stick going, ow, ow.
Like he's
ow.
literally he's skating where he's like,
yeah. Like he's just every single stride, he's just agonizingly screaming at the top of his lungs.
And
you know what? There's a whole Simpsons.
Coach, I don't know if he's all right. It's like coach is like, guys, he looks good.
There's
playing out there.
There's an incredible Simpsons bit during they're doing a whole bit where it's supposed to be like the Olympics in LA in 1980.
Okay.
And you see like a replay from the gymnastics. Yeah, one or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
And the gymnast, and they're showing it's supposed to be like a replay of the gymnastics. And he's like, and we bring you to the highlight of the gold medal winning Chinese gymnast who finished a perfect dismount on what was later revealed to be a broken leg. And then you watch the highlight of him landing and then just going,
you hear the crack.
Like you just see him, you hear the crack in his whole body goes, like screaming at the top of his lungs. And then the announcer just goes, ouch. Like that's
just like ouch. That looked like it hurt.
That's gotta hurt. Like that, like it's literally that. It's one of those bits that The Simpsons does really, really well, because it's just so believably true. That is where the Canucks sometimes land with injuries and stuff, again, because they have no depth. They're in a case where last night they had 5 right-handed defensemen playing, I believe. It was something nuts. Hunt was Hughes. Hughes was the lefty, and then you had
Shen.
Myers, Hamonic, Shen, Poolman, and Hunt and Burrows. You had all of them playing. They're all righty defensemen,
Lot of righties.
and then of course Hamonic got hurt midway through, so that sent them down to 5 defensemen. And
guess
Tyler
which
Myers ended up playing like 30 minutes.
Guess which Bruins guy hit him?
Was it Brad Marchand?
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was Brad Marchand.
Obviously, it had to be him. I was mad. Of course it was. Like the Sportsnet did a hit before that game where they're like, Brad, you got a history with the Canucks. What do you think? He's like, I like to play my game. And I'm like, I hate that guy until he plays on Team Canada because he was great at the World Cup of Hockey.
He was great. Like
he's such a rat. It's so frustrating.
It is one of those things where I was literally like, after the OEL like sweeping the leg thing, I was like, I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, they should do suspensions where instead of him being suspended for like the next immediate like however many games, they should have it like start or happen when they play that team next. If there's like a history or a pattern there,
it's like
Brad Marchand should have to miss the
so
game.
It's a proactive suspension. So it's like starting on your next rematch with Vancouver, you miss 4 games, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Where it's like that, because I think that's more. I think it's one of those cases where I was like, he really shouldn't, considering he's been suspended twice for injuring Canuck players before and the whole 2011 thing. He really shouldn't be given the benefit of the doubt he's not targeting them.
I mean, the reactive suspension, I think it doesn't punish them until they play next, which in this case, it would have been fine because they played like 4 games later. But if you're playing at East versus West, you might not play them for another 3 months. All I can remember though is that like I remember that Bruins game, I think it was 2012, where he clipped Salo, and then they gave him 5 in a game. And Claude Julien, it gets up on the bench, and you can easily see him mouthing, "What the F is that?" He's just like,
yeah, because.
And I'm like, come on, Claude, you saw it. He clipped him badly, and Salo is like,
that is. I will say, like, to be fair, like coaching wise, like I think every coach should is probably going to do that regardless. Like in the sense of like, if my player like clearly just took a penalty, I'm still going to be like, he barely touched him. What are you talking about? Like, you're still going to do that. You're not going to be like that. You're not going to be like, that's a fair call, ref. You did a bad.
But that'd be like, what if you're the coach that like had what's his name, McSorley, and he just slashes Brashear, and then you're as a coach, you're like, I barely touched him, and then the replay is like, he literally like knocked him right in the head.
Yeah,
like, you can't defend that, and I don't think Marchand's actions are really defendable either way. Even if you're the coach, like you can get mad, but to go up to the ref and be like, "What is that call?" I'm like, he clipped him badly.
There's no rule that says he can't hit him in the head with his stick.
That's so stupid.
I mean, to be fair, Marty McSorley, when he got called
in another game, I think.
He never played another game, but in 93 he got dinged for using an illegal stick during the cup final against Montreal. Like they called him on that penalty. They were winning. The Kings were winning the game. In game 2, they were going to go up 2-0 in the series, and then Jacques Demers calls for a stick measurement on Marty McSorley because all the Habs players knew that could tell that his stick was illegal. Sure enough, gets thrown in the box. Habs tie the game. They win in overtime and then win the next 3 straight to win the cup. Yeah. But the funniest part about all of that is that to this day, like there's interviews with Marty McSorley and like other like in the Kings coaches being like, that's a lousy decision to make in a cup final. Like that's I would never make that call. It's like literally, and even like to the point where like Jacques Demers is like, I know it's a bit of a weird call, but it's the finals. I got to take my opportunity when I see them. And I'm like, no, Jacques, don't apologize. He was playing illegal with an illegal. He was cheating.
It reminds me, who was the Leafs player that played with an illegal stick? I think it might have been like not Antropov. It was like, so the guy, it's really funny. They were playing the Jets in like the first week of the season. And then like the ref came over to him in the pregame and he's like, yeah, unless you change your stick, we're going to call you. He's like, oh, okay. Didn't change the stick. And then they call him in the first period for an illegal stick. And you see not Brendan Shanahan, sorry. That Mike Babcock like lose his mind being like, are you kidding me? And he's like, I told you, like the ref's like, I told him in the preseason and in the pregame, you can't have that stick. because he was grandfathered in or something. There was a weird thing with because he did have quite a long stick, but it was too long apparently.
Yeah, I remember once Willie Mitchell got called for a stick measurement against the Flames. I think it was Mike Keenan, who was coaching the Flames at the time, called Mitchell for an illegal stick, and it turned out to not be. And it was one of those like, hey, you tried. But yeah, like it's one of those things where like I'll never in all the interviews I've seen, it's hilarious how the Marty McSorley spends most of the time talking about like the Habs players only knew because they went to the locker because the sticks for both teams are wheeled into a room that the Habs players have access to. So they found out in a really weird way. It's like, it doesn't matter how they found out. You cheated. You're
using an illegal
rules. Stick. You don't get to play the moral high ground card when you literally cheated in a game.
The playoffs, like, sticks don't matter. I'm like, sticks do matter.
That in itself is one of the things where I'm like, oh, hockey culture's got some fixes to make, specifically and things like that, where you're the bad guy for claiming that a player for correctly assessing that a player is playing illegally with illegal equipment. Like somehow you're the one in the wrong there for doing that. But where were we even talking about? Oh, of course, coaching and Marchand.
And Marchand as well, but also just Bruce in the last two games, really.
Yeah, Bruce Boudreau, for what he's accomplished in the last couple games. One of the things that I'm noticing, besides the fact that they are playing a type of hockey that is much more exciting. And I think Cody correctly pointed out that it was very much more in line with what the team played in Travis Green's first few seasons coaching. Like they played them. The biggest problem the Canucks had essentially this in the last 2 years has been that they looked at their not good blue line and they said, okay, the blue line's not good, so we're going to pull our forwards back, play more conservatively to make up for that fact, which on the surface sounds like sounds
reasonable. On paper, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because, of course, if you're not good at defense, if your defense isn't necessarily good at protecting the blue line, if you bring more players back, it makes for a more collaborative team effort and it could potentially work that way. The problem is that by doing that, it completely takes away from what you are good at, which is high scoring, quick, aggressive hockey. And so it was one of those things where it's a case of, well, you're going to give up a lot of scoring chances as it is. Like that's not going to change regardless of where your forwards are playing. So, and what kind of style you're playing at. So you might as well try and play more aggressively to try and get some goals and try and play a little bit more of a fire wagon hockey, which you're more capable of playing. And this year that really cost them big time. And I think that's cost Travis Green his job, quite frankly, at the end of the day, especially because you look at the last two hockey games the Canucks have played. Not like the game against the Kings was pretty flawless, was practically flawless from a Canucks standpoint. Especially as far as this season goes, it's a shutout win. You got a power play goal. You didn't give up any PKs.
The Kings did outshoot them, but Demko stood his ground. They kept a lot of shots to the outside while I was there. Like
and
the way
only
that they
outshot
were
them by
just,
one.
Forecheck was great on that. Like I saw them always pushing them to the outside, at least when they're defending. And I'm like, this is way better. It seemed like they were always trying to chase after a puck when it was in their own zone. And they always looked at the opposition was on a power play.
Yeah. And even in the Bruins game, a little bit more back to earth, like a much more of a game that was a bit more sloppy. They weren't necessarily playing at their best, but the PK looked a lot better, albeit they gave up the one goal of the game that the Canucks give up, but that meant they didn't give up a single. They gave that up on a 5-on-3, and they didn't give up a single goal at 5v5, which is incredible. They also didn't score one at 5v5, granted, but they kept in pace, and the Canucks for their efforts were rewarded with a shootout win, and and there were cases where like the PK was even getting more chances than the Bruins power plays at certain points. Like they were looking good.
They looked really good. They're being aggressive and they're always on them and they're getting like turnovers off of it.
Yeah. You're seeing Pettersson get to play penalty kill time. Quinn Hughes is getting penalty kill time. Besser. Like you're going down the list. That's like, oh my God, like why weren't these players playing before? Why weren't they getting these opportunities more recently. Just the fact that Brock Besser has kind of looked a lot better since Boudreau took over, because Boudreau's like, you got a good shot, you should shoot more. And it's like the 2 goals that he's gotten hasn't necessarily been indicative of that. Like both of them, I believe, were deflections in front of the net on power plays. But it's a case of he's putting himself in the right place, and suddenly the puck is bouncing in his favor again, which is great for him. And then if you can, and maybe if that rubs off on Pettersson later, that's going to be suddenly teams looking okay again, especially at forward. Jason Dickinson looks a lot more comfortable. You're seeing players that were struggling pretty mightily under Travis Green's system and under Nolan Baumgartner's penalty kill, with under the watchful eye of Boudreau and Scott Walker. Now they look suddenly not the best in the world, but they look clearly like there's a clear, obvious improvement on the team that started the week to the one that we have today.
Yeah.
The effort is looking much more clean. It's looking a lot better. They look like they're having fun playing hockey again, which is really important. And yeah, for what it's worth, Boudreau is a very funny guy. He's a very likable guy. I didn't know much about Boudreau. Like I knew in like a tiny bit, whatever snippets we got from 24/7 when he was with the Capitals.
The only thing that I think a lot of people like, fans like us, because Boudreau coached with 3 teams, but besides that, everyone only knew him from that 24/7 rant where he goes off on that Capitals team. They were losing 1-0 to the Panthers, who were not very good in that era. I think it was like 2011.
All of them, except for like the last 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're losing to the Panthers, and yeah, you can look up this clip because it's a lot of hockey people know about it. But he just and you know what? When I was younger, I was like, wow, this guy is like really vulgar. But then you look at it, and it's like, yeah, he's vulgar, but like he did have a real good point with it. Like it's all about body language. The way that they were losing 1-0, and all the players were coming back to the bench, like they looked absolutely just I'm trying to just completely out of it, really.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're not gonna obviously win or at least come back. But yeah, I appreciated a lot of the quotes he had. One of my favorite ones was, "Why do we let people into our zone?" It's like it's like a philosophical hockey question. Why do we let people into our zone? Yeah, that is a good question. Why do we let people into our zone? Which is, with his like hockey philosophy, he's pushing them to be way more aggressive and forecheck, and they're getting a lot of pucks going their way with that. Also, he had that great little everyone clipped it when he got up out of his intro presser and he drops an F-bomb. I'm like, there we go.
That's the guy. I know.
There's Bruce. There we go. That's Brucey.
Yeah.
And
with Boudreau, you're seeing the way that he talks about the game and the way that he breaks down plays and everything. Again, new coach, he's going to be a little bit, he's going to get a bit of you're getting a coach who is fresh in terms of this isn't like in Travis Green's case where he's been doing this for 5 years and it's going not well and he's kind of run out of ways to say things are not going well. This is a coach who's literally, even if the team went and lost every single game, he's early enough in his tenure that it's kind of just we're feeling it out. We're going to have a good time. We're going to try and make things good. And you're seeing that in the way that he conducts like himself with the media and everything, and the way that he answers questions. It's very much a case of like, I don't remember the last time the Canucks had a coach, if ever, if the Canucks have ever had a coach who is so openly like, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to accomplish. This is what I think is going to work for this player. This is what I think is going to work for us. And like seeing him very thoughtfully take the questions that he's given and answering them with the most candid answers he can give is great. I think it really, again, for a team that struggled with communication as much as it can, obviously that's not really a coaching thing. It's not really necessary. Like the coach doesn't have to explain why everything works as long as it's working. He's doing that anyway, and that's great to see because the Canucks really need a little bit more of that reason to believe, and sometimes that comes from just being able to hear your coach talk about very thoughtfully why they deploy the strategies that they do and how that's going to bring them success down the road. And just looking even into things like looking at the numbers on like the videos of like the post-game and pre-game videos with Boudreau compared to Green. the last few weeks, I looked at a couple of the videos that of Travis Green's like interviews and stuff. They were usually topping out at like 5 minutes or 7 minutes. Very short. Obviously, it's a case of, again, team's not doing very well. You can only say that so many times. But then you look at the Bruce Boudreau interviews so far, and it's like the shortest one is like 9 minutes. And then you're looking into things where it's like 13, 15 minutes. You're getting like double the amount of him talking for like double the amount of time and answering more and more questions. Again, part of that is just being due to being a new coach and having a bunch of new questions to answer from that coach. But it is nice to see that we're getting a lot more insight into what the Canucks are doing. And I think under Boudreau, they're going to, if the management didn't change, not a lot was going to matter. But because that the management is changing and shuffling so far, I'm quite liking the Boudreau effect of things right now. I think they're looking a lot more comfortable, and they're looking a lot more confident. Whether or not that translates into a playoff spot, probably not, but
we're just
it's nice to believe again.
We're
right?
playing with the house's money right now. I think a lot of people would say the poor start of this season has essentially just written off any sort of like expectation. Like,
Yep.
I think a lot of people would be happy if they got into the playoffs, but a lot of people would say, wherever we end up is wherever we end up. They're going to be happy that, number one, new faces in management, new faces in coaching, and we seem to have at least a little bit of an idea of where we are actually taking this. So, I'm happy that we've won back-to-back games, and I'm hoping that we can keep this going. Who knows? You could always turn this into a winning streak, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to start saying, "Oh, Benning was great. It was Travis's fault," which that gaslighting is already happening on Twitter, which I want people to stop. So
yeah, really, I was already like, oh my god, what if the Canucks? I was already like saying like pessimistically to Cody, I was like, what if the Canucks go on an absolute heater right after Boudreau takes over, like go 10-0, and then their answer is, we've brought Jim Benning back, and I'm
no. Well,
no.
Like, okay, so say they do that. They do that. Like, say they win like 9 or 10 and everyone's like, I thought it was Benning's fault. They would have to come out and say, it's not about one specific person being held responsible or being attributed to this. As an organization, we were disappointed with the results, and it's a business. We're very happy that we're 10-0 right now, but at the same time, we're not going to say, oh, it's all this person's credit, or we're going to go back and say, you shouldn't have fired this one. We made our decisions, and our decisions are final. Like, I hope they don't be that you don't like get a report all of a sudden where, Elliot Friedman's like, Francesco Aquilini expressing regret about firing Jim Benning early or some crap like that. Like, that's not going to happen. They gotta own up their decisions. And if you're going 10-0 or something like that, you just say, hey, we made a decision. We're enjoying the reaps of that. Because I doubt they go 10-0 if I think the players are quite happy that management has gotten completely reset here. Like, that communication problem is a huge issue. I think a lot of those players had major perception issues of how the COVID outbreak was handled last year. And I'm not trying to blame specific individuals, but having Benning and Westbrook be like, the same people that are still running the team while they're, in this year where they had better expectations, I thought was just not a good idea. And so I'm glad that they've essentially said, we're starting fresh, new coach, new management, whatever happens. Hopefully they go on a tear, and they've started 2 games with wins, which is great.
Yep.
What was I going to say here? The chants were awesome. They were at both games. I wish they pushed it a little more. Some people were talking on Twitter, and I want to get into this a little bit before we talk about there's one other NHL story outside that we'll talk about. There was a new development while we're recording also too.
Okay.
So I saw Pucks on Net. Arash tweeted, new goal song, Spice Up Your Life.
Like, like they're doing that, or
no, it's a suggestion. Because
just a
some
suggestion.
people were suggesting that because this is a new era, we should get rid of the Van Halen.
I would be fine with that. I don't like
Ain't Crazy About Love or something like that.
I think it's fine, but it's one of those. It's very inoffensive. Like, there's nothing inherently bad about it. It's just very.
And I'm not saying I want something unsafe.
Basic.
I don't want something unsafe. When I say safe, Well,
unsafe.
yeah, no.
Unsafe. I want some
No.
unsafe music. I want
Well,
WAP by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. Like,
when I say
no, not explicit
the
version.
family the Canucks brand is very family oriented, so I get the idea that they just wanted to do something that, I remember they did this goal song, I think starting 2 or 3 years ago, and they usually change it every 2 or 3 years too. But I just feel like, if this team starts really winning, everyone was attaching themselves to that tag team. Whoop, there it is. Bruce, there it is. Like, you could mix that up too. You go, Brock, there it is. Like, it doesn't have to be about Bruce. What if they took the tag team song and then made that the interactive part? Like, they do the Hey Haze for the Van Halen stuff. They take tag team and they drop it on the whoop. So you go, whoop, there it is. See, that would be a good goal song.
That
I
would
think
be
that'd be fun. It's not offensive either.
It's not offensive either. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I think the amount of players that particular kind of thing would work with are pretty small. Like, it's one of those things where, like, in terms of, like, if you're going specifically for the chant aspect of it, like, there's
Oh
only
yeah, no,
you
I'm
can't
not
do
saying
that with Lamico. There it is. I mean,
Yuho,
you
there
can
it is.
do
No,
Yuho, there it is,
I'm
I
not
guess.
saying that it works for everyone. I'm just saying it kind of has, like, because people could keep saying Bruce there is because people are attributing success to him. But all I'm saying is that I think we need a new goal song, and I hope there's some traction on that, at least online, because it seems like the organization and a bunch of people are like taking input. Not obviously, but like it's very cohort, like very slyly.
Yeah,
So.
it's been talked about before. Like, I'll say also for Spice Up Your Life, I think that's better as an intro song than a goal song. I think personally, I think that's a better, like, bringing up the players kind of song. That's just me
It'd be
and
good,
my
pregame
familiarity
song.
with the Spice Girls discography.
Back when they did, they still do. I'm not sure if they still do this because I missed the pregame for the last couple games I've been to. Do they do the playlist of all the players, one song kind of still? Because they used to do that in years prior.
Oh, the custom goal song?
Yeah, no. The custom goal songs. They would choose one song from each player, and that would be like the pregame warm up playlist, essentially.
Oh, I have no idea on that.
I mean, something like that. I don't know.
But yeah, I would say for a goal song for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
I'm of the mindset of, here's the thing: if you're not going to bring back the greatest goal song in the history of hockey, which is "Holiday" by Green Day,
Yes.
I want to see them go in a direction more in line with what a lot of other teams are doing, specifically what the Kraken have done, where they specifically took a Nirvana song for their song, because Nirvana is a band from Seattle. Like, Nirvana is a well-known, popular band from Seattle. So if the Canucks are going to bring in a different kind of goal song, I would like to see that isn't, say, the one that they're most known for. I would like to see them go in a direction of picking a band that's local. I saw some people suggest Nickelback, to which I said, Nickelback is not from BC, and also Nickelback is terrible, so please don't. So please don't.
I got a couple Vancouver suggestions already in my mind if we're going to suggest that.
I have one. I have
Okay.
one that is the correct answer.
Sure.
The correct answer, and it's a song they already play at games and would be perfect for a goal song, which is "Raise a Little Hell" by Trooper. I think that is the best. It's a Trooper's a Vancouver band. I think that fits very well. It's a good mixture of classic rock and a song that has a bit of a chant aspect to it that people could get behind. It's not a hard, like, that in itself is a song that I think the Canucks would be perfect for a goal song.
I'm trying to think. My suggestion was essentially because a lot of people joke about, like, I like the DJ now, how he's integrating a lot more of like the punk and the rock songs, a little more alternative edge, and I like that. People, I think it was the NHL 2002. Job, I Hear You Calling. Great song. Don't know if it would work as a goal
The
song.
Roxy
It's
Fever.
local, technically. It's local, technically.
The Roxy Fever theme song.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good song. But yeah, that's one idea. But like I remember, like, this is not Vancouver themed, or at least local. If they don't want to go back to Holiday, I still think Green Day is a fine choice. I was the type of person that was pushing for Fire Ready Aim, which is one of their newer songs, which you can turn into like a chant as well, because it's a pretty basic song on its own. Like, you listen to the song, you're like, this kind of sucks as a song, but as a goal song, it's great. So that's my suggestion, at least. But I think both of us can agree. Bring back Holiday.
Holiday would be the best choice. I also actually, you know what? The other two, there are a couple like older
Or just bring
ones
back
that I.
Olay. Just bring back the Olay. That's a classic.
Olay's pretty good too. I
It's
do like
better
Olay.
than yeah.
It's better than what they got now.
Yeah.
There's also the honestly like some of the weird like out of left field ones that the Canucks actually back in the 94 era teams used used more than one goal song usually.
Yeah.
And some of them were actually were cool. Some of them were very cool and kind of like out there.
Mhm.
Like Good Thing by Fine Young Cannibals is actually really good as a goal song.
Yeah.
They also used I think it was a different Green Day song actually in 95. They used
Was
a
it
different Green Day song. It
Welcome to
was
Paradise? I'm
I
thinking
think
like
so.
Dookie era.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't I know it wasn't
could have
Basket Case. It was
When I Come
the other
Around
one.
or
That
Welcome
was
to
When I
Paradise.
Come Around. That's it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That was
Yeah.
that was a
That's
goal
a good
song.
goal song too, actually. I like that.
Bad
They
Case of
could
Loving You.
They could do
That
a
was
Green
another one
Day
they used.
succession there, yeah, because they did When I Come Around, Holiday, and Fire Ready Aim or something. That'd be kind of
Yeah,
cool.
Bang on the Drum All Day. That's another
That's a good one.
That's a bit it's a bit of a funny one. I like that one
Yeah.
as well. There's some other just gems in there. Unbelievable. Like there's some weird there's some good ones in there. Like a good
Yeah.
catalog of like
Or
songs in the
like
90s
you know
that
what would
fit.
actually be what would be really interesting? You take a poll, you go through a lot of the historic goal songs of this team, you send out a fan poll and say, "Hey, we're going to introduce rotating goal songs. But top 5 goal songs of this team's history, fans choose, and they just rotate them. So everyone gets a little bit of, their taste. They get Holiday, they get Unbelievable or something like that. I think
Yeah.
that'd be it's better
Um,
than like player chosen songs, which
I'm not a,
as we all remember,
I don't need more
this was
Baton
some,
Rouge.
no
I don't-
more Colin Baton Rouge. And I feel bad
Yeah.
for Sutter because they said he was like January, and then they're like, oh, we're just hopeful that he can play. And I'm like,
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not really a surprise. Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, as long as they keep I'm Still Standing as the win song, I don't care.
yes.
I don't care as much about the goal song anymore because the win song's too good.
Yes.
All right, other stuff. There is one thing we should throw in there because we talked about this kind of on the last episode of the show.
Yeah.
Which was the fact of Cody and I were talking at like the very end of the last podcast. We talked about how hey, if there's one team that might be doing just as badly as the Canucks are right now, it's the Flyers. And then I mentioned that they lost 7-1 to Tampa the day before, and I was like, oh, things are probably not good. And I realized that after we finished recording the show that they had actually fired Alain Vigneault.
Oh, you didn't realize that they had fired AV.
I did not notice because I was because we were so caught up in all the Canucks stuff that I did not even realize that had happened.
There was a lot of people that were talking essentially that the reason that they had fired, they were going to fire Green, but the reason they signed Boudreau so quickly was because the Flyer, like AV's on the hot seat and the Flyers were interested. So that's why they're like, we're bringing in Bruce now. And then like, what do you know, Monday morning, they fire AV. But yeah, no, that's pretty funny actually.
Yeah, the Flyers are not doing they really
lost
7-6
to the Avalanche or 7-5. Either way, they surrendered like 7 goals, I'm pretty sure. So either way, they are like, and there's also this great highlight reel goal by Makar you should look up. That was in that game. So
that was the
Flyers are bad.
You know what's really funny is I just went to I went to flyers.com. I looked up flyers.com.
Yeah.
And apparently this is
they don't own flyers.com, I'm guessing.
They don't own flyers.com. How do you
Oh my god.
How is that possible?
Okay. That's interesting actually.
Someone
must have held on. Well, no, maybe like this
someone probably bought that literally because again, this
is not them actually, you're right. Oh, I'm looking at the about section. Welcome to flyers.com. This site is a tribute and reflection of my passion towards the sport of hockey. Yeah, what if I had like during like the .com bubble or when the internet was getting big, I was like, I'm gonna get Canucks.com and I'm never selling it to the NHL. Because originally,
you'd be crazy not to. Like, how much money is that? How much money would they probably pay you for that thing to have that thing?
So, shout out to Steve at flyers.com for getting that domain.
That's very funny.
Yeah, well, I remember
not own flyers.com
because I remember like as a kid going to NHL.com. It used to be every team was teamname.nhl.com. And I used to just go to like the random team pages because they were cool. You get to see the, the branding and the players and the highlights and stuff. It was like
now they're all
Canucks.nhl.com
NHL.com
slash.
yeah,
And I
which
don't
fine.
like that. And it's
That's
okay.
fine.
I wish they
It's
still did
like
the whole thing.
if you punch in the old one, it still goes to the correct place, so it doesn't
True.
matter.
For those though that are wondering, NHL.com used to be actually a great site. Like back in 2010, 2011, that was the peak of NHL.com. NHL.com now is
I think it's always been
articles are
bad.
good. Articles are good. I'm not saying it's not good. All I'm saying is that the interface is not as good. I liked what they had.
Cleaner now. I think
Really?
it's a lot cleaner. Yeah, I think it's a lot cleaner.
Let me go take a look.
I thought it was too messy. I thought the old one was messy. I think the video platforms that they're using are still very bad. Like I don't for the life of me, I don't understand why they can't
Okay,
just
you know what? You're right. I actually don't mind this. I just have a great affinity.
nostalgia
for the old-
goggles. You got nostalgia goggles on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think I don't understand for the life of me why they don't just use like YouTube systems for their website. Like it would make so much more sense.
Is it because they have the BAM tech deal? Or is that only for live streaming
video? It is, but like even then I feel like those sites do a lot, like their other sites do a lot better job at like running their video content than the NHL's is. But yeah, let's get off of this. This is very inside baseball. The last thing we want to talk about is the Coyotes.
The saga continues.
So the Coyotes, essentially, a report came out yesterday that the Arizona Coyotes were being essentially evicted from Gila River Arena because they had not paid their they were behind on a bunch of payments and for their like the bills and stuff for the arena and rent and their rental agreement.
It was mostly city taxes, actually.
Yeah, a lot of taxes.
There was $250,000 taxes, but altogether they had not paid $1.4 million. I'm pretty sure.
Which like on the which here's the thing. That sounds like a lot of money, but it's also really not when you consider that that's less than a third of what they're paying Louis Eriksson right now. Like that is like for an NHL team, considering the payroll that they already accumulate on a year-to-year basis, that's a drop in the damn bucket, which makes it even more baffling that they didn't pay it. I was laughing about this yesterday. I'm like, how stupid can you be as an organization to think you're going to get away with that? Like, it's really when I was talking with Cody about it, the example I gave is it's almost like the metaphor I gave is like it's like being the person the employee that steals from your own work, like your own place of business, because not only are they going to be able to know everything about you and where to find you and that you did it, you're also never going to get a job again because everyone's going to look at you and be, oh, you got fired from your last job for stealing. Okay. For stealing from your employer. Okay. We're not going to hire you, kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
And in this case, the Coyotes are in a spot where, because they don't have a new arena in Tempe yet, they're already going to get kicked out of Gila River Arena at the end of the year. They need to literally be on their best behavior with the rink for the rest of the year, because they need to be able to convince somebody else to rent them a rink for the next however many years, if that arena actually gets built. So for them to do this, it is really hard. In what universe is another arena going to look at that and be like, oh, you have a history of not paying your bills even after you are already kicked out of given a year to leave? Sounds great. Where do I sign? Like, no, that's not going to happen. No arena is going to let to you.
What is the likelihood that Tempe looks at this and says, we want in on this?
We're not getting our building.
I honestly think that this is like the biggest red flag they're going to get. And if they do approve this building, which I think is now like, it's less than 50%. Like, as a city, you're not going to look at Glendale and this entire history of the Coyotes there and be like, this looks like a sure thing we want to be involved in.
Yeah, unless they're promising to pay it out of pocket entirely themselves, unless it's entirely publicly or privately financed.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like
so there were two more developments essentially. So late last night, or last night. So Katie Strang put out the article about this, and everyone's like, "Oh, relocation time." It's always fun to play that game. And then the Coyotes put out a statement, and I'll just read the beginning of the statement. It was interesting. "We have already launched an investigation to determine how this could have happened, and initial indications appears that it to be the result of an unfortunate human error. Regardless, we deeply regret the inconveniences this caused," and so forth. So this was a human error, but I'm putting my money essentially on that. They just weren't going to pay until they got caught, and then they're like, "Oh, it was an error. We messed up. So sorry, guys. Sorry, guys." And now this is what happened while we were recording. They paid the bill this morning. They said they've paid the 1.4, and insiders confirmed this. But now, from the Hockey News, the Glendale city manager has spoken and said the Coyotes still haven't paid their rent, and they remain skeptical of the human error claim. And so they've settled the 1.3 million in outstanding arena payments, but the woes are still received. Speaking in an exclusive interview with Hockey News, Kevin Phelps insisted that while he couldn't speak to the internal workings of Ice Arizona Hockey LLC, the parent company of the team, he remains highly skeptical of the human error claim. "Here in Arizona, all the taxpayers have to pay online," he said. And so there's a very simple process. You go online, onto your account.
I'm just getting I'm just having a vision of like Howler, the Coyotes mascot, sitting down at his desk, being like, "Okay,
so it's like Alex Marullo saying,
what's my
Howler,
social security again?"
Be like Alex Marullo going and be like, "Howler, you're on tax duty." It's like, got it. And so you go online on your account, you plug in the numbers for the taxes they're due, and then there's a gigantic button that says remit payment, and that's done monthly. So every month since June of 2020, somebody has filled that information and admitted the form, but forgot to submit payment along with it. Could it have been human error? Was it possible that it wasn't? No. Is it likely? I would say that we remain skeptical, especially in light of their past history.
God,
the Coyotes have
no.
not
That
returned
was
a comment on that.
we forgot to click. We clicked the wrong button. Like, God, that is literally the Mike Stevens
Bad
from the
timing
Staff
too.
and Graph podcast, and also the Hockey News tweeted, literally tweeting, according to him, the Coyotes have presented checks that make them current on the 2020-21 season and game day expenses for the 2021-22 season. They have not, however, paid rent for Gila.
So here's what this has done. This has burned any bridge of them staying in the temporary. They're not going to get any lease from Gila. For
they're
Gila,
screwed.
and they're screwed. So Gila's done. Because here's the thing. Tempe still isn't approved. I felt like if this thing hadn't happened, if they're paying everything on time and all that, there was a slight chance that they would have been, "Hey, we have a deal in place, but we need to play 2 more seasons here. Can we do it?" And the city would have probably been like, maybe. I'm not saying they would have said yes, but they could have been like, "You paid everything on time for the last so many years. Fine. Then we're done." And that would have been it. But no, they didn't pay. They've been backlogging everything. And now they're like, "Oh, here it is." And the city's like, "Okay, yeah, we're going to speed up this process of cutting ties and everything." And there's no arena deal done anywhere in the state. So where are they going to play?
I'll tell you where they're going to play. Not in Arizona. I'm they're going to leave.
I want to put some money on that too. There might be a parlay being like, will the Arizona Coyotes play in Arizona next year?
Will they play in Arizona by the end of December?
Well,
I think
they'll make it now to the end of the year. They're not going to the playoffs, so they don't have to worry about extended stay.
Are you sure? No.
I mean, they were so they're going to be done by the end of April. And then they're going to just be evicting. They're going to be like, "All right, everything, all the Coyotes merch, everything out of Gila. We're going to pretend that they were never here."
Oh God, this is a case where 100%. It's like the fact that there's basically no mention of the Vancouver Grizzlies at Rogers Arena anymore.
Yeah,
they were what? We don't know what there was never a monorail.
There was no. What are you talking about? It's we got Coyotes in Phoenix, but hockey.
There never was a monorail here, and there never will be. Closes the gate that says Monorail Cafe on it. But with the Coyotes. It's a sense it's this thing of again, I'm saying this as somebody who's clearly I have no ties to Arizona in any way. I don't have any fan. I'm not a fan of the team. I haven't followed them my whole life. And I know for the hockey people there that, it'd be very tough to lose the Coyotes and that it would suck. But as a hockey person, I am so sick of talking about the Coyotes and whether or not they're going to survive after another year. I am sick of having this conversation because this isn't even including the fact that earlier this week, there was a report that came out that the Coyotes were up for sale with potential to move them to Houston.
Yeah, we
Like-
completely forgot about that already because
that
of the
was already a
taxes.
thing. That was
Yeah.
already a thing. So like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to. I honestly hope they don't get the arena in Tempe because I don't want. I don't want to watch. I don't want. I don't
No
want.
one
the
wants them
Coyotes
there besides
anymore.
maybe fans in Arizona and people that like want to go see the cheapest game possible in
Yeah.
Arizona, which
It is-
I get, but like
Yeah.
send them to Houston. I will be interested if they can get a rebrand done in time. They probably won't.
The Houston
But
Coyotes. The Houston
No,
Coyotes.
like because that Houston Coyotes works, but I think that if they're gonna go to Houston, they should sink some more branding identity considerations into that. Besides that,
I will
like
say, I
because
don't
the
really.
current Coyotes logo, like the Kachina, has more to do with Arizona itself than
Yeah.
Texas. Like you can put
Yeah.
a coyote, you can do Coyotes in
That'd be
Texas, but you
crazy.
need to
That'd
put
be-
your own spin on it.
Yeah, that'd be like, oh, that'd be like putting. That's as crazy as like say having a team in Memphis called the Grizzlies. What? Who would
And
ever
then they
do
wear
that?
and then they wear jerseys that actually say Vancouver on them for some reason too.
Yeah, God,
That was weird.
Screw Memphis. I hate them. I'm honestly like, here's what I'll say this as well. Like I'll say as well, like I am, if it wasn't for how the divisions are formatted now and
Mhm.
how they're set up to like actually have an even number of Western and Eastern teams,
Yeah.
I would say I would be like, I don't even want them going to Houston. I want them to go to Quebec where they'd be a sure bet of actually making some money because there's a whole building out there. There's a whole fan base that would literally sell out every single night. It's a guaranteed sale.
It would be a sellout,
The Quebec Nordiques coming back would be the best thing for hockey in terms of like the health of the league and everything.
That TV
like
deal,
that
though.
would be
The TV
well,
deal.
'cause even
There's
with
no-
the TV, I think it would
there-
be very. I think the TV money would actually be there now rather than it used to be. Like, well, compared to the Coyotes, how much were they make? Like, how
They're
much more
not.
are they probably? They're
Probably
almost,
not. But here's the
they're-
thing: it's an American market. ESPN and all that stuff is only applicable to the states, essentially. Like,
Right, but that's a
I highly
national
true,
contract.
true. But like all the games are on ESPN Plus as well for games that are not. There's like a ton that are only exclusively on ESPN Plus, and I doubt the league is going to say we're going to move a pretty like high capacity. And I'm not saying that they're getting the ratings now, but like a high capacity US market. We're going to move it to Canada, to a small town, which has history in hockey, and expect the same thing. It's like the
Well,
only
they
way
don't
I
have
could
to
see
say
that ever
less.
happening. And they would have to realign everything too. The whole
That's literally
division,
the
as I
only.
said.
See, for me, the only stumbling block is that the alignment would be messed up, and they'd suddenly
Send,
again have too many
send
Eastern
Detroit
teams
or Columbus back to the West, which will
back to
never
the West,
happen.
which would be a very bad thing to do.
They would hate that. They would absolutely
no.
hate that.
Yeah, no, the league is much better the way it is. And that's kind of the issue is that really, again, I think even with the money, I think the amount of money you would make off the Nordiques on everything else would outside of broadcasting would still like make it far more worth your while than say keeping them in Arizona where they're clearly just a huge money pit that makes nothing every single year. It is a
Yeah.
huge drain on your finances. But like, yeah, if they're going anywhere, Houston is probably the correct choice.
Yep.
Again,
If
I just want
they
them to
don't
leave.
get an arena deal though in Houston, because Toyota Center, I don't know would
Well, I think
it'll
they'd
be
be
interested.
sold, right? They'd be sold to somebody who would be guaranteed to get the deal with Houston to do it. So it'd be someone
Perhaps.
who already owns the team. It would be
Maybe.
the Houston. It would be already whoever owns the
It would
Houston
it would be
Rockets.
like what's his name? It's like
'Cause I know for a long time the big
Birdman
issue with
Fertitta or
Houston,
something. Yeah.
the big issue with Houston for a very long time was that they didn't have the guy who owned the Rockets for a very long time had a specific issue had a specific hatred with hockey kind of thing.
Really?
Or had like a weirdly like a very combative relationship with hockey in that market. And there was a reason there were
well,
there were like AHL things, there were like other things, etc.
maybe it's
Where
AHL
essentially he was just anti-hockey. He came to basically an anti-hockey thing, and it was literally a case of the NHL would move to Houston, would have a team in Houston by now,
yeah.
if the guy who owned the Toyota Center and the Rockets didn't hate hockey so much. And that's literally why but now he's no longer the owner. So now there's a case of where they could get a team there again.
Well, they were talking on 32 Thoughts about, like, this was before all the attack stuff had come up. They were only talking about the sale potentially. And they were talking about Tillman Fertitta, who is the owner of the Rockets. He was interested in buying an NHL, like getting into the NHL. And he had like provisional talks with the commissioner and some governors. But the problem was, and this was a couple years back, was he balked at the price that the NHL was asking for an expansion team and said, I'm not spending that much. Like, I'd love to get into hockey because, it's a business opportunity, obviously, but he's not spending probably like $600 or $700 million for a franchise. Though if the NHL forces Ice Arizona to sell, they probably, like, how much did Forbes say that they were worth? There was the valuations came out.
Today. That one's
actually.
always, that's always a little, I don't know for sure. It's probably very low.
Well, I'm just curious. And also
something.
because 400 something, and what did like Marullo buy it for in like 2019 or something would be interesting too.
That was the other thing I looked up actually a little bit on Alex Marullo. It turns out he has a history of not paying for things that he promised to pay for.
So 400 million, and I'm just gonna quickly see how much he bought the Coyotes for.
Basically,
if it actually
I think, long story short, to kind of put a bow on this, it's if you have not gone to see a game in Arizona and you would like to, you should go do it now while you still have the chance.
True.
And
this could be the farewell season.
God. And again, I'm sorry to any Arizona listeners, but God, if the Coyotes leave, good riddance. I'm so sick of them. I'm sick of this has been 10 years. Like, I was on the mindset that they should move back in 2010 when they were in bankruptcy the first time. I was on team, please get rid of the Coyotes. They have done nothing to change my mind on that in the last decade. Yeah, please get the Coyotes out of the NHL. I'm so sick of talking about them. The jerseys and the logo are the only good thing about them, and that's it. Please move them to Houston or Quebec. Preferably Quebec, because again, Quebec, if you can keep the uniforms, you could call them the Quebec Coyotes if you wanted. And Coyotes is just coyote. Is coyote in French, so you could be La Coyote de Quebec. That would be pretty cool. They just kept the Kachina. That'd be very funny.
That'd be weird.
If they just like, yes, we have our own like history of First Nations in Quebec City, but we're gonna keep the Kachina style art for this team in the middle of northern Canada. Let's go for it. This very sunny tropic Quebec City. They've got like cactuses. They've got cacti on the uniforms. That would be I would love it if they just leaned into that. And with that, I think that this brings an end to this episode of the CreaseCast. Thank you so much for listening. Jacob, thank you for being a guest co-host again this week. Where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at JKMNEW and on Instagram at jacob.cam.new.
Nice. Cody will be back on Monday for the Monday show. And you can find his work at ahlnuxharvest.com, and you can find him at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and at ahlnuxharvest on Instagram. I am Lachlan Irvin. You can find my writing work at canucksarmy.com. I write there quite frequently. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lock in the Crease. And go check out the CreaseCast Patreon for $5 a month. We have bonus shows and other little bonus content and tidbits for you guys to go check out, including some new stuff that I believe I'm announcing on this weekend. Actually, I think we're gonna be announcing this weekend for the Patreon people. So go check that out. You can also check out our merch at teespring.com/CreaseCast, and make sure to go check us out on the CreaseCast on Twitter. At CreaseCast on Instagram and at CreaseCast on TikTok. Yes, we have a TikTok now. I'm so sorry. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back on Monday. Bye.
Bye.